On January 16th, long before the date had a number or a name, the deep woods of Alabama stirred with the footsteps of Choctaw traders. They moved through the Black Belt forest like the wind itself, their canoes gliding through creeks and their ponies treading narrow paths beneath tall oaks and whispering pines. They carried furs, copper, salt, and stories, currency of a people who measured wealth in what they could remember, not what they could own. At the river crossings they met other nations, the Chickasaw, the Creek, the Alabama. Each word exchanged a bridge, each trade a thread binding the land together. By the time Spanish scouts wandered north from Mobile Bay, those same trails were already mapped by memory. They followed the scent of smoke from native fires, marking the land with crosses and banners, claiming what was never theirs to claim. Then the British came, stamping their flags into the red earth, drawing lines that divided where no border had ever belonged. Alabama was still wilderness, but in the sound of axes and muskets you could hear the early rhythm of a state being born, the first rough chords of a long, hard song. General Andrew Jackson's army marched down into Creek territory, building a wooden stronghold on the banks of the Tallapoosa. Fort Jackson, they called it, a fortress meant to claim victory, but it stood instead as a scar carved deep into native soil. The Treaty of Fort Jackson would take millions of acres from the Creek people. Their homeland turned into the foundation of Alabama's expansion, and yet even through loss, the spirit of the land endured, whispering through the pines that no fortress stands forever. Just 3 years later, in 1817, the Mississippi Territory split like a river dividing at its mouth. And from that division, Alabama began to take its own name, its own shape, its own story. Towns rose from clearings, courthouses from clay, and soon the dream of statehood flickered like firelight through the hills. The frontier was becoming a nation within a nation, rough and restless, hungry for both progress and peace. On January 16th, 1861, the old Capitol in Montgomery trembled again, not with war yet, but with the sound of speeches and hammers, as workers prepared its halls for a new government. Flags were sown, cannons shined, telegrams sent across the South. The air smelled of ink, sweat, and tension. In less than a month, the Confederacy would be born under those same marble columns. The city that once symbolized unity now stood at the edge of fracture, where loyalty and rebellion met beneath the same roof. Nearly a century later, in 1956, another kind of courage rose in Alabama, authoring Lucy, a quiet woman with a steady gaze, walked toward the University of Alabama's door. She was met with mobs, threats, and hatred so loud it echoed across generations, but she kept walking. Her steps broke a barrier older than the campus itself, and her name became a lantern in the long march toward justice. The same land that had once divided now began to heal, slowly, painfully, but surely, through the will of those who refused to turn back. In 1991, the Gulf War called thousands of Alabama's sons and daughters overseas, from Birmingham to Dothan, from Huntsville to Mobile. National Guard units packed gear and kissed families goodbye. The same courage that built forts now build bridges across oceans, and when they returned, they carried was a battleground for empires, celebrated record cargo, ships rising and falling like the tide of history itself. Cranes and container stacks gleamed under the southern sun, the hum of engines echoing the old songs of canoes and trade. The same waters that carry explorers and soldiers now carried commerce and possibility. January 16th is the drumbeat of persistence. It is the sound of the choked off footsteps through the pines, the hammer on Huntsville steel, the heartbeat of authoring Lucy's courage, the echo of soldiers on foreign sand, and the hum of ships leaving Mobile Bay. From Fort Jackson to the bridges of Selma, from the cotton fields to the stars, from Alabama has learned that progress is never given. It's built, rebuilt, and built again. The song of this land is one of endurance, rock in its strength, country in its soul, Celtic in its memory.